And there was a couple other times where I was on board a small Coast Guard cutter. I think there were 54 footers in Boston Harbor, and we got one call. Somebody was had a problem with their boat, so we went to the some yacht club. I think Charles River Yacht Club empties out into the Boston Harbor, and this woman's yelling at us at the end of the dock. And we're heading towards the dock, and she says, "You know, my stupid husband did. He put in 150 gallons into our 100-gallon fuel tanks, and it overflowed into our double-walled hull. And so we had a commercial tow it out into the harbor because, you know, at that time it was just a fueling bomb ready to go off, and somehow offloaded that fuel. But anyway, hopefully you still copy a Paul WA3VJB from WC1X.
Yeah, I bet you've seen it all. WC1X WA3VJB. Yeah, interesting on the Corazon. Yeah, that must have been a lot of adrenaline and heart racing, no pun intended, on monitoring the transmissions and trying to be in touch with the guy. Because that was before GPS, that was before, well, it wasn't before satellite, but as you said, all he had was VHF. And then, yeah, some of the surface boat encounters. We've been on the Chesapeake Bay for about 30 years now, and I've pulled in probably half a dozen boats disabled over those years. You know, you listen to 1-6 or you listen to 22 Alpha and find out where somebody is, and you end up being close enough to do some help. And I tell you, it just never ends. This is the time of year, too, when people are just getting out for some of their first boating seasons, that you find the most mishaps. This past weekend, we were south of Annapolis, and we run up on the beach and set our chairs out, you know, and dump the dogs out, and they have a good day, and we sit on the beach. So we were south of Annapolis by, I don't know, 20 miles maybe. And I heard a Coast Guard station in Annapolis, or not Annapolis, but the Baltimore-based Curtis Bay Coast Guard, talking about a partially submerged sailboat. And it's like, it's unmarked, and the mast is sticking up, and we knew where it is. It wasn't anywhere near us, but we knew the area. And I just said something about a heavy night of drinking, you know. How does that happen? But then on the way back, hours later, there was a guy who had radioed he was in distress, and he'd already kind of banged up against some rocks that protect the pilings of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which goes from Annapolis over to the eastern shore. And he'd already banged into the rocks once and was apparently very inept at operating the radio. And somebody who had come into the area was in a sailboat and couldn't do much good as far as, you know, pulling this guy away. But from the radio traffic, the guy was describing being near the northbound lanes of the Bay Bridge, which is an east-west span. And obviously what he meant, or not obviously, but what he ended up meaning was that there are two spans, and he was near the northernmost span, which happens to be the westbound direction for highway traffic. But when you're in a boat, it's less relevant. So eventually they went around and around, and this guy said that he couldn't help him because he's in a sailboat and he can't get near enough. And the guy is only occasionally being on with Coast Guard. He's in touch with them, but not responding to calls and not responding to this other guy trying to help him out. And we're headed in. You know, our ramps that we use are at the foot of the Bay Bridge. The Sandy Point State Park has public boat ramps. We're coming in for the day. We got the two dogs with us. I look at Pam and I say, should we go help the guy? Nah, she says, we've got the two dogs. There's plenty of people out there. It's liable not to be a very easy lift. All right. So while we're motoring in a no-wake zone anyway, I see a Maryland Department of Resources boat come out of the same area where we're headed in. And I try and hail the guy. Actually, it was a female, patrol officer. I try to hail them on 1-6 to make sure they know what's going on out there. She doesn't answer. Neither one of the two-person crew even looked my way when I hailed them on 1-6. It's like, okay, they don't even have their radio on. So I radio out to the guy in the sailboat saying, be on the lookout for a Department of Natural Resources boat headed your way. Try to flag them down. And somehow the guy on the sailboat misconstrues what I'm saying, and he thinks I'm DNR. So he starts, like, addressing me as to what I'm supposed to do with this guy who's up on the rocks, or just about. And it's like, no. So I'm going to keep quiet. Let Coast Guard step back in. This is already kind of collapsing around itself, and I've told the guy to be on the lookout. There's not much more I can do. And the guy in the Grady White, the powerboat, comes back on, and he's all nervous, and he barely can croak out a sentence. And he says that his anchor rope has gotten wrapped around his outboard motor, and the line is probably going to have to be cut. And this was in response to a Coast Guard question saying, can you drop anchor? And, well, no, I can't. Here's why. So now the guy in the sailboat has seen the DNR boat coming out, and he starts yelling into the radio as if that's going to help the crew of the DNR boat hear him. And I guess they probably did a visual flag down. I just had to pot the radio down, Mark. I couldn't listen anymore. This is something that you need to practice at the start of the season and to pay attention to what's going on. So by way of telling you that story, it probably takes you right back to the 1980s with some of the stuff you heard. Am I right? WC1X W2JTD.
Drinking involved?
Who knows?
Okay, Paul, and the interloper, I'll let you in a second. Yeah, I've got a similar story, Paul. I was on a Coast Guard vessel in Narragansett Bay. We got called out to a jumper. Middle of the day, Sakana River Bridge, where I guess the Sakana River empties out into Narragansett Bay. Big bridge, 4-lane, a couple miles, well, maybe a mile long. So there was a reported jumper. So we go out there with our Coast Guard vessel, and there was another vessel out there, maybe state police. And we're looking around, we can't find this, and we look up and looking up, and then we spot the jumper. He's between the cliff and a bridge stanchion, about 50, 80 feet below the bridge, and probably about 50 feet, 80 feet above the water. And the guy's hung out there like a pretzel, presumably dead. So we see the Middletown police and the Portsmouth police parked up on the bridge, and they're arguing with each other who has jurisdiction, because it's no longer really a Coast Guard issue because the body's not in the water. Somebody has to repel and get that body out of there. So we're listening on the mutual aid police frequency, the radio. We can hear them arguing back and forth. And the state police chimed in and says, okay, we're going to have the state police rescue division guys that can rappel down and remove this body, but it was just pretty bad. You got this poor soul that ended his life, and you got these Keystone cops from two small cities arguing with each other who has their jurisdiction. State police then said, okay, we got this, guys. We have to stay on scene in case the body fell down into the water, and then we would have to catch it. Anyway, that's my morbid story. It's in the interloper. This is WC1X.
Well, I'm not hearing anybody. I went into one of the SDR receivers, too, to see if anybody was there. Somebody want to join us? WA3VJB. All right, WC1X WA3VJB, right back. Yeah, what I'm missing, Mark, is whether they were arguing as to whether they wanted to retrieve the body or did they want the other guy to retrieve the body between the little local constabulary there. It's like, no, not our body. It's your body. I could see that going either way there. No, we want to rescue the body. No, we want to rescue the body. Or it could have been the other way, as described. And then the state boys come in. They say, nah, we got it. Yeah, we've seen traffic stopped and Coast Guard deployed and DNR deployed at the Bay Bridge, which is a couple of 100 feet off the water. And they don't usually broadcast it because it encourages others. Never actually deployed for one, but have been in the vicinity when we see all the cars stopped and we figured out what was going on. Nah, I don't have anything morbid to be involved in for rescues and salvages are concerned. I've seen a sailboat mast barely above the water right off the U.S. Naval Academy, which was kind of symbolic, right? And I've pulled a number of boats in with stuck thermostats and empty fuel. What was another mishap? Spun prop. Yeah, you know, in 30 years' time, you get out there, and I think it's part of the whole public service thing that we do in the hobby, that you're kind of attuned to it a little bit more than perhaps the general public with a ski boat or a more routine recreational boat. I keep an ear on the radio and see what's going on. Oh, yeah, there was the airplane, too. There's an airfield right on the other side of the bridge. And somebody lost power on takeoff, circled around and landed it in the water, a very shallow little tributary that goes out to the bay. And the Coast Guard boats couldn't get up in there. We can, because I only draw about 1.5 feet with the motor tilted up. And I got up in there and saw the plane in the water and, you know, smelled the fuel around. The guy had just topped off his wing tanks. So he was all right, and he walked ashore. You know, it was that shallow, and there's the plane in the water. And Coast Guard stood off a ways because they couldn't get up that far. And I wasn't that comfortable sticking around there either with the gasoline on the surface and, you know, any kind of ignition point you could imagine. So we backed out of there and got on our way. But that was pretty dramatic. You don't know. You never know. You go out there and you hear the Towboat US and the Boat US on Channel 10, I guess they use around here. And you flip over and you hear some of the conversation and characterization of the skippers who get hung up is pretty funny. But it all, you know, 9 out of 10 cases, it's lack of preparedness. And it's just one of those things. I don't know, Mark. I guess your time there was all stateside. A friend of mine I went to high school with got deployed overseas with the Coast Guard as an armed patrol support mission. He had some stories to tell as well, but I don't guess you did that. I don't know if I'd want to if I signed up for the Coast Guard and I ended up in the Persian Gulf, you know. Well, back to you for one more. I'm not sure the bands are holding up. You were down a little bit that time, still Q5, but not the 10/9 signal you had earlier there. I wonder what the rig was. I think you mentioned it, but I didn't write it down. And now I have my pen in hand here, and I can do that, Mark. WC1X, West Virginia, WA3VJB, Annapolis.
Okay, Paul, I'll break. Does anybody want to make a transmission? Over.
W2JTD.
Hey, Paul. W2JTD, WA3VJB. Got Mark in here, too, in West Virginia.
All right, Mark, go ahead. I'm just kind of testing on this band.
Okay, Paul and Paul. Both signals are quite strong. BJB, you went up to like 20 over us. It's really good, which usually means it's going to crop out and go along pretty soon, but right now you're very strong. And you have a flow. Yeah, that scenario I was talking about, what it was is who had jurisdiction. If that bridge crossed the city border between Portsmouth and Middletown. And so they were debating about that. But anyway, yeah, there was one other thing I'll tell you about. Listen out. I was also doing Coast Guard District Headquarters in Boston. And before, there was a food room sponsored by the University of Baltimore, which is only like 2 blocks down from the Coast Guard station headquarters in the first district. So this guy went missing off the booze cruise, couldn't find the guy, searching all day, they couldn't find the guy, and then we go out on the boat to relieve him. And we got a report is they found the guy, he's floating under the dock where the boat is anchored to, and you look across the parking lot, there's a Marriott hotel right there. And sure enough, we found the good dude in the water, so we had this, I think a 44-foot cutter with a big boom on the back. And they had this nylon mesh piece of fabric supported between 2 posts, and you could winch it down into the water, and then you could prod the corpse into that, winch him back up, put a super body bag over it, and then bring it below decks. And since I was the most junior guy, the old crusty chief petty officer, active duty type, he says, by law, somebody has to be with the body at all times. And he gives me these 2 cigarettes. He says, what's this for? Well, when you go down below decks, it's going to start to really stink quite a bit. So smoke these cigarettes, and that way you won't pass out and start puking on me. I said, okay. So we turned the boat around, and we were back at the slip at the Coast Guard station, and sure enough, the state police hearse, and Massachusetts State Police colors, hearse pulls up, and another statey, and walk up the gangplank and bring it up. So that's another colorful story for my Coast Guard career. Anyway, I'll turn it out to, I figured your call sign, I'll turn it out to the other Paul, but this is Mark in Moorfield, West Virginia, and I'll be hanging in here for a little bit more. Go ahead, this is WC1X.
WC1X, W3VJB, W2JTD. Good evening, gentlemen. You guys and your maritime hijinks. It's great listening. Just thought I'd jump in here and say howdy do, and I have nothing to add. I don't have a boat. Well, I've got a boat, but it's upside down, and I think poison ivy beat me to most of it. Just want to check in and say hello and play with this DIY up on 40. It's a learning experience. Isn't it, Paul? VJB Radio from W2JTD.
JTD Radio and the group WA3VJB. Yeah, welcome. I don't know if this is the first time we've worked under the new technical regime there, but you're sounding high fine business from Bergen Sound. And yeah, Mark, that's a pretty good strategy there to light up some cigarettes there to ward off the other aromas. Well, you saw a lot of it. I have an appreciation for that because these guys go out there and they don't know what they're going to find. Boat hung up on the jetty, and everybody ejected, strewn around the rocks ahead of them. Yeah, nighttime stuff. That's when this sailboat apparently crapped out that we heard initially on Sunday. The one that was partially submerged, and I called it a heavy night of drinking. You got people who water ski at night. And, you got jet skis that are not lit. They don't have any navigation lights at all. All kinds of mayhem can happen. And then a storm will kick up, and when you're out on the open waters of the Chesapeake Bay, that's how one of the Kennedy family drifted off. 2 of them got killed, drowned. The Kathleen Kennedy Townsend was the lieutenant governor in Maryland, and one of her kids went to chase an inflatable beach ball, and she said, no, wait, let's get the canoe. And so the 2 of them, without life preservers, go off in the canoe. Not Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, but 2 of the kids. And boat capsized in a storm. And it was all she wrote. So that happened a couple of summers ago. Anyway, Paul, good signal. You might want to give Mark a report there at Moorfield, West Virginia. I didn't catch what rig he's on, but I don't think he's running high power. And I agree, Mark, your signal continued to build there toward the end, which usually means the band's about to crap out. But, Paul, in the meantime, you're about 25 over 9 on the ITT McKay Maritime shipping receiver. Seems apropos for our storytelling of the day. W2JTD in the group, WA3VJB. Then over to Mark.
Ah, cool. Well, I can't give you a signal report, Mark. I wasn't paying attention the first time. WA3VJB, W2JTD. I'm watching the herringbone patterns on my monitor here and thinking like, I think I've got some ferrite something somewhere, and I can mute that back a bit. This is the first time I've had this DIY rig on 40 meters with any audio. You know, I've poked and peeked a bit with the fabled empty carrier, you know, touch and go landings as it were, but it seems to be holding its own with my Stacko tuner solution. Yes, the Stacko tuner. Why figure it out when you can have a stupid mechanical solution to a problem? I don't know. I was always one for percussive maintenance rather than trying to figure it out. So many hammers, so many nails, not that much time. But yeah, Paul, you're at least 30 over here, and Mark, what I remember from the last bit of conversation, I would think you're about equal. You guys are both kind of slamming on in. I'm continuing now that I'm enjoying this weather. That's not nautical talk. It is nautical. I live on an estuary. This is a maritime environment where everything corrodes. Several times today I went out on the deck and spun like Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music. It was cool. It was like 62 degrees. There was a light mist. You know, too soon we'll be sweating and swatting bugs. So I, as much as possible, went out and immersed myself in an environment of wonderness. It was just great. I love it. Just absolutely love it. Humidity's coming now. The other side of that was I spent the time doing my Swedish death cleaning in the attic, and all the boxes for everything I owned are going out. All the, you know, Behringer rack gear and all that stuff. I don't need those boxes. If something craps out, I'm going to throw it away, right? Boxes will just like add to the pain, so they're all going out the door. Lots of styrofoam and crap out of the attic. The best thing you can have in the attic is nothing. You know, it's good for fire safety, and it's good for all kinds of other things. It's really nice to have nothing up there. So that's what Maggie and I are all about. But as a combined family, we're shoveling memories, you know. And, oh no, I can't get rid of that. Those are my troll dolls I have when I was 4. That's what I'm dealing with, Mark. Listening on a old military R390. I don't know what military it was from, but they scratched the paint, and the transmitter's a K7DYY. Over to you, WC1X, WA3VJB, W2JTD, Cape May Courthouse, not Bargain Town. That was the olden days.
Okay, Paul. Very good. W2JTD from WC1X. Yeah, I know what you mean, Paul. We retired about a year and a half ago when we bought this home in West Virginia. And, you know, I've got like 40 years of collecting ham radio gear and equipment. A lot of stuff was boxed up and moved from place to place over the years and never unboxed. And so I've been selling a lot of this crap on the internet. And I still have lots to go. It's amazing how much stuff, you know, half the stuff I said, geez, I forgot I ever bought that. I got some Gates roller inductors that are like, you know, 42 like microhenry, something like that. Anyway, enough to get down to 160 and humongous ear variable capacitors and stuff you don't see too often because of the size and specification, but running back and forth to the post office, and I still got tons of stuff to go, but it's been a little bit lucrative, I must say. I'm probably losing money on all this stuff, but you know, it's trading and getting a few bucks for it, so I guess that's the plus side. But I've got this huge room down here that I've got to empty out of ham radio gear. And then I have this other room which I'm in now, which is quite a bit, but I'll be keeping this stuff. Yeah, the rig here is a little Johnson Viking Ranger, about 40 watts output, and the antenna right now is a 40-meter dipole up 50 feet. Receiver's a Collins 75A4. I've got a 9kC AM filter in it, so it actually sounds quite good on AM. And I have another antenna here I use on 40 at night. And that other antenna is a 250-foot long dipole up 75 feet. I use 4-inch open wire feeders to an old TMC balanced antenna tuner. And the location here is I'm up on a ridge. I'm about 1,850 feet ASO. And my closest neighbor is about a mile away and 800 feet below me. I can look on top of the rooftops here. And we're not too far from the Potomac River, about a mile and a half away. So it's a great radio location. But there you go. Anyway, over to you. To the other Paul, WA3VJB. Hope you still copy. This is WC1X. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the best you've been so far there, Mark. WC1X and W2JTD at Cape May Courthouse. Thanks for the correction. WA3VJB. Yeah, I think it just rolls off the memory tongue there to say Bargaintown. So I even did it, I guess, unconsciously. Not subconsciously, but unconsciously. I love it when people say that. You know, that was my unconscious speaking. Oh. Glad I could hear it. Well, that was a pretty good transmission, Paul, on your super senior there. It sounded like the acid test to me, with no crap outs, no anomalies. Nice 5kC chunk of passband down the, I'm listening on the low side, because I'm actually hearing an international broadcast station on 7290. So I'm taking the low side of the passband on the receiver, and sounds good. A little tiny bit of hum in there when I listen on headphones. I can't hear it on the local speaker, but there is a little bit of hum. I think you suspected a little bit of RF getting in somewhere. It sounds just more to me like basic hum from a ground loop, or maybe there's a little RFI getting in somewhere, but it's not anything egregious. It's something that could be way down on the list. Congratulations on proving out the hardware solution to the antenna matching problem. I did that. I had stacko tuners too. I still do. I have the Merch here on 40, and I've got one of the Heathkit tuners for 75, but I don't use them anymore. They're just preset. The repeatability of most tuners is not very good, and it's a very, very sharp sweet spot when you use not one but two different MFJ instruments to figure out best impedance and keep the DYY happy. So, Mark, what we've been commiserating with one another is both of us have these transmitters, and they're very picky about their antenna match. And I went about it the way Paul has done, with a wire tuner carefully selected and tuned, and was unsuccessful because of a little bit of tarnish, or maybe a little bit of looseness between the wheel on the roller inductor and the turns that it rolls upon. But every so often, that little bit of tarnish, or whatever the anomaly is, was enough to trip the transmitter, and an endless source of annoyance. So I set about crafting an inverted V at the right altitude, the right apex angle, and the right length for this frequency. And voila, the Super Senior becomes happy. And the wire tuner has gone awry. Well, it sounds like an excellent site you've got there, Mark. And I, too, have decades of accumulated stuff. As with Paul, occasionally I'll purge something. And he sounds like he's on a more of a wholesale purge right now than I could ever muster. Just can't do it. I got to get good and mad before I'll start throwing stuff out. I don't have any troll dolls, but I've got other stuff that I've accumulated since college that is going to be either worth something someday, or I'm going to need it someday. Those are the two main justifications to keep it all stacked up around here. And so there it is. But I don't think I need 4 R390As. You know, the main, the backup to the main, the backup to the backup, and the backup to the backup to the backup. I don't need that many. Wait, let me clear my throat properly here. There, it must be time for an adult beverage. So I've got a mess out here in the radio lodge, Mark. When Pam did some remodeling, when she joined the home here 30 some odd years ago, I was exiled from the radio room as the last unfinished room in the house to a 20 by 24 building that was built on the back of the property here, custom built, and anointed as the radio lodge, which promptly became filled up to its capacity. And that's where it's been for 20 odd years now on its own. So that's the problem. It's not getting solved anytime soon. Paul, back to you for one more. It's 20 to 6. I think I'm going to go inside and get the adult beverage and see what dinner is mustering to be. Glad you're on here on 40. Let's try and spend some time, maybe tomorrow, proving things out to whatever extent you wish. Otherwise, we'll just sit and visit, you know. Mark, good to run across you here. Duly noted in the log, and look for you too. Get us some activity here on 40, see what it does. W2JTD to take it, WA3VJB.
Good. I was listening in high quality there. I got caught. VJB radio, W2JTD. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's getting to the point where I can start doing some of this stuff, and I love your radio lodge. Well, I've got my radio lodge. And one of these days, you and Pam will take the ferry over and slide up 12 miles and perhaps pay us a visit. I don't know. W3JN hit Cape May and tried to talk his better half into visiting, and she's like, you know, I don't want to visit one of your dirtbag buddies, and so they went back south. But then she met us at the Kutztown Ham Fest and decided that we were cool. So next time he comes over, he's gonna slide north as well. We don't get many visitors here. You know, I use deodorant and stuff. No Axe body spray, but a little bit of you know, is it Hart's Mountain or Hart Schaffner and Marks? It's Hart somebody. No, it's Menon. So it's good to have a place to put your stuff in. Backups. IC718 exciters. I got 4 of them. One of them crapped out. One's in service. 2 are waiting like shark's teeth. They're cheap. They're easy. You know. I'm gonna. Yeah, I'm really getting rid of stuff. My last 2 DX100s, including the infamous MOP 100, previously used in alternative service. I'm considering like moving that along. With a couple of Viking 2s and VFOs and whatnot. Mullica Hill Hamfest this September. Be there. I'm not getting any younger. You know. I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through. When my parents died, my father saved everything from the year 1925 until he crapped out. And I'm not kidding. It took us a year to shovel that house out. I threw out 5,045 RPM ball dance records. Ball dancing? It's like square dancing with an attitude. Nobody wants to hear that stuff. Lawrence Welk would throw up when he heard that catalog. So they all went to the landfill. I don't want my kids to have to go through that. I'm going to leave them with a 45 of incense and peppermints, you know, my ham radio license, and a little map that accuses you, VJB, and Joe GMS of being point man and getting rid of this crap. So, gird your loins. You never know. Bargaintown, that was great when I was in the Rooster Net. I was number 798. They called me the discount rooster from Bargaintown. I guess I had to check into that someday. I first got my general, and I was really hot to get on the air, so I even hooked up with the old buzzards. And they all gave me numbers and accolades and certificates and stuff, and, you know. But my heart and soul was in the Piss and Moon Net, and shall it be evermore. And yeah, Mark, you're 10 over. There's a little bit of QSB, but you're kicking it with that Ranger. I've got a Timtron stock eliminator Ranger here that's next in line, or second to next in line, to get up on this band. Tim worked that for me a couple of years back, and I never did fire it up. You know, it's like Schrodinger's Ranger. It works until they plug it in. If it craps out, then it doesn't work. But right now, it's in a state of Optimode. Optimode? Could work. So that's that. Anyway, all right, I'm out of here as well. Guess I'm going to go check on the sauce. Got to start a sauce every now and then. Nice bumping into you there, Mark. Nice hooking up with you again there, Paul. WC1X with W3BJB. W2JTD. Out?
Okay, very good, Paul. Yep, very funny. Yeah, we're getting rid of stuff too. Ryan that don't want to lay all this on my wife. So we got a ways to go, but we're making some progress. But anyway, I've got a Johnson Viking Giant that was working okay, and then I had a crap out. I think I know what it is, so we just got to find the time to effect the repair. Hopefully be a successful repair, but I think I know what it is. And I haven't been on AM for some time, so I thought I'd fire these boat anchors up. And you're both very strong here. Still 20, 30 over at times, and some deep fades occasionally. But anyway, I'll bid you adieu. Nice meeting you, Paul and Paul, and we'll talk again sometime soon here on 40 meters. 73's WA3VJB with W2JTD. This is WC1X listening out.
Okay, Mark. I thought I heard somebody else in there, too. Who was that? It might have been JTD just keying up and saying, see ya. The WC1X and W2JTD, WA3VJB making a final. Yeah, I'm glad you fired stuff up there and answered my CQ, Mark, a while ago. Hope to encounter you here again on the bands real soon. I've been on daytimes, as mentioned, more often than not. And if you do have time to get on and scan the bands, I'm usually down on this frequency a little bit lower to leave enough space for another AM QSO up 7290 or so. I won't operate at 95. There's this guy in Ohio, the Zool, KC8ZUL, Jerry, who has a thing called the Noontime Forum on 7295. And, you know, I look at my passband, and there's little frizzlies that might get beyond 72 or 7300. It's like, nah, I don't need that. So I come down low and leave enough room up there. And, of course, being on 7290 would definitely get in his sauce. Speaking of sauce there, Paul. So I definitely stay lower when that's on. He gathers half dozen stations usually take part in that. But it does give you an indication of what the band is doing. And yeah, Paul, on the Timtronized Ranger, you know, AJ400 has got one of those that was just delivered at Deerfield, and he's been on with it. And it sounds very good indeed. Pedro, AJ400 is in Connecticut, and I can always tell when he's not using the Ranger because everything else he's got doesn't sound as good. So if you run across Pedro, you'll hear yet another Timtronized Ranger. And yeah, your signal's been holding up, Mark, the whole time, except for that one little kind of warning fade, you know, that the band was going to go out. And I think we're riding on borrowed time here. And Paul, yeah, I heard you mention that Hamfest. I don't know, we're not really so much up for the Hamfest scene, but I would indeed like to come see you and Maggie at your place there on the estuary. Anywhere near the water is happy by me. And looking at the back deck that you've got, some of the, is it sunrise or sunset pictures that you've gotten? Wow. I have a QSL card, as a matter of fact, custom made from JTT Radio with that very image of the sun low in the horizon. Beautiful, magnificent setting you've got there. So, yes, I will mention it to Pam, and we may very well take you up on your invitation there with fair notice. Gird your loins, my man. And yeah, this is nice. I wish we could get Johnny up here, JN, and some of the other guys up here on 40, because I think this replicates what we find in other seasons there for the What's for Dinner net on 3733. This could become an afternoon delight for us on 40 meters throughout the summer season here when there's time. Anyway, catch your shots later. Nice spending a little time on the radio here this afternoon. Good conditions, good company. WC1X having signed, W2JTD having signed. Here's Annapolis radio. WA3VJB now over, off, and clear. Rock, bye-bye.
Okay, 73's ball. Rock! Yeah, we need to wake up the Eggman. Not just the Eggman. Oh, God, who's the car guy? WWL. We got to get him up here.
The lowest guy, yeah. Kia Rio as well as W2VW, the Ape Man.
Yes, formerly known as. Yeah. Yeah, Jay and I get together for lunch. We got together last year for lunch. He had a car to show me. It was all polished up. Well, now I've got the Mercedes, you know. It's like those comics where the bully kicks sand in the skinny guy's face and he barks up and he's looking for the dude, you know, next season. I've got a show car. Hey, it'll fit on the ferry great. Just don't get crushed by one of those fifth wheel things with the the bus on the back. Those trailers and motorhomes. Anyway, yeah, nice hooking up with you guys. 73 Mark, 73 Paul. I might slide down to 05 and see what's going on. I don't know. You know, it's Thursday night. Never know what's going to happen. Anyway, PGB Radio. Oh, ma'am, anytime. Yeah, I like 3-4 days notice, but you know, you guys don't even worry about it. W2JTD.
Okay, WA3VJB. See ya.